Hi there, Unlearner. Welcome to this episode of the Unlearners podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for taking a slice out of your life to be part of today's conversation. Now, I am beyond excited to have this conversation for a few different reasons. And I think you'll see why as you start to lean in a little bit closer to your screen or to your phone, wherever it is you're listening or watching this episode. And one of the key reasons I'm excited about it is that we often define the key topic of today's conversation of excellence in very different ways. And I want to play, now you use this term very loosely, I want to play devil's advocate with today's conversation around excellence. And my guest today is keynote speaker who really focuses on this idea of helping individuals and organizations build cultures of pure excellence. Fortune Nkwanyana.
The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow.
Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence at the Unlearners podcast.
Hello to you, Mazet. Zaneme.
That's a great name.
I know, that's the nice part about it. I have to bring back that granny story because we're going to talk about excellence and I'll tell you why we started there. And also, hello to the Unlearners family. Thank you for having me here. It is such a pleasure as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I can't wait to hear where you want to go with the granny thing. But the reason why I said, Fortune, that I wanted to play devil's advocates is this. So, oh my goodness, the idea around excellence is so contested.
True.
Mainly because it's such a buzzword, but also our culture, and we were speaking about, we've had a few instances of this throughout the season where we've touched on this idea that there is a culture of a go, don't stop, hustle, keep going for your dreams, wake up at 4 a.m., sleep at 2 type of idea around work culture, professionalism. And so what most of us will do is we'll take excellence and we'll associate it with behaviors that lead to burnout or unhealthy lifestyles, and we'll say, oh, I'm being excellent.
That's so true.
So talk to me about how you define excellence.
So basically, defining excellence will go back to the very beginning of, my childhood, before I was even bitten by the bug of wanting to stress for more. So, but I want to put a background to it. So as society, we've got this thing of associating excellence with this esoterical thing that only a few amongst us in the society that can achieve them. Excellence is associated with big names like the likes of your Elon Musk. When you talk about excellence, you want to talk about the black coffees, and we tend to think that's the only thing about excellence. So my whole thing has always been about teaching people to unlearn that, because even for them to reach there, they had to unlearn what they knew before. So that's why I was saying I'll take you back. So I'm born in a very rural area in KwaZulu-Natal, in Durban, but it's situated in the northern of KwaZulu-Natal. It's called Wamapumur. And growing up there, my grandmother used to be a domestic worker. And at some point, one thing she taught me was that you need to pay attention to everything around you, because there's something to learn in everything you see. So what she used to do then, she paid attention in the community where we stayed. A lot of people would go to town and it would take them about an hour. You had to wait for a bus and it would take for long. And you go to town, you buy your groceries and come back home. And when they came back home, there's certain items that you forget. And that's why the whole idea of having spaza shops and small stores around the area came about. So my grandmother started a small spaza shop. And what she was doing it's the thing that really fascinated me. She always said she wanted to achieve more. So I'm talking about a grandmother who literally had no formal education, but she looked at identifying opportunities that are there in the society. So she saw that problem firstly. And what she did with that problem, she started to solve it. And in solving it, I then paid attention to something that was amazing. She was able to send her kids, which is my father, to school, through to university, and even graduating and going as far as starting his own life to becoming someone powerful with just the idea of believing that she can do something. And then for me, I then found the idea of excellence. Say, sometimes we look too far to think excellence is only for a few people. But I understood a woman who said, look, man, I know I am in this rural area, but if I'm only going to say excellence is for the big names, then I will not do this. So I then started to redefine excellence and saying that excellence is what we continuously do and what we strive to push, to saying that I want to be better than what I was yesterday.
Yeah.
So for me, that is excellence.
Yeah, I like the idea that you closed off on, that it is the continuous improvement.
Yes.
It's you against you, and maybe not even against. It's you building on you. It's
That's
you
true.
transforming. And one of the episodes we had as part of the season was speaking about peeling the onion. And going, what version of me do I now need to uncover? What do I now need to let go of, to step into what I now feel I need to become, or the version of me that I'm now giving birth to? So I like that. So I'm back on your side now.
Because even with the onion, analogy, I mean, the more you peel the onion, the stronger it is. So it's the same with this idea of excellence. I mean, you are in the professional speaking business. Tell me if I'm lying. The more you stand on stage, the more comfortable you become standing on stage.
Correct.
So what happens indirectly, the more excellent you become. For someone who saw you when you were beginning, they'll think you were not excellent then, but they don't understand that that was you unlocking the excellent, unlearning the old idea of excellence and relearning the new, which is what we see now.
I like that. And I think to that as well, to build on that, it means that at any point there is a level of excellence.
That's true.
Rather than saying excellence is something tomorrow, oh, wait for me tomorrow, I'm going to be excellent. Going, I'm excellent now.
Yeah.
How do I reframe? And you touched on this already. How do I reframe to see the excellence and then build onto it?
That's
what I'm hearing.
That is very true. Because remember, I make an easy example with, our professional speaking arena that we are in. When you get the less bookings, you would think you're not good enough. But the more you keep getting stages, the more you keep improving, the more people see you. The biggest problem that I think we have as a society, that's one thing that we need to unlearn, is to thinking that we're only excellent when people approve.
Ah, yes.
So we need to then unlearn that, thinking that I'm only going to think I'm excellent because Anela said, damn, Fortune is good. But you don't understand that sometimes you need to stand in front of the mirror and say, hey, Fortune, you are a bad boy. You're good in that stage.
Yeah.
And then you begin to believe the idea of excellence within you. You take it to your workplace. When you walk in there, you're like, I'm excellent at my job. Before even your leader, your boss. I mean, these guys even that are shooting us right now, they know they're excellent at their job, but they sometimes only wait for you to say it. So I think we then need to unlearn that, thinking that we only excellence because the outer person who's outside is telling us, and we need to relearn and think about excellence as something that comes from within.
Correct. I would even say, Fortune, that it is a combination of two different things.
Yeah.
And I think you probably know this very well, that it is the reason why we do look for outside affirmation is because there are systems and grading systems. Maybe say, for example, at work, I can't go around saying excellent, but my performance review is
That's
shocking.
very true.
So there's definitely an element there. But I love what you're saying is that the reason why we need a reframe is because excellence is so much more than what the world has told us it is.
It's very true. That's very true. I mean, I'll make another crazy example. I witnessed this growing up in high school. I was never an A student. I was always those D students, played around with the troublesome boys.
Yeah.
I literally became a head boy because I was the one who was so influential in trouble that I'm the only one who was able to tell the boys to stop it now. That's why they made me the head boy.
Yeah.
But where I'm going with this is, it was one day where one teacher told me the same thing I'm telling you, that you need to stop believing yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and stop telling yourself that you're a D student. Before you even achieve the A's, you need to start believing it from within that, look, man, I'm excellent.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm not saying that, guys, you need to do your work at the workplace. Do your work while you have the belief system. I'm just saying, if the belief system is right, the results on the outside,
Correct.
they just immediately come back.
Correct, yeah, because you only act from your beliefs. You
Which is
can't
very
act
true.
anything else. And that's why if you want to know what someone believes or what belief system they hold, you just look at their practices.
Exactly.
And it's easy for someone to say, no, I believe in being honest, but they're not quite honest. Then it's not quite a belief. Maybe it's intentional. Maybe you want to be honest. But your belief is probably something else.
That is very true. And I think in most cases, we tend to think, we talk about unlearning.
Mhm.
It's all about looking at what you've been told before and also then looking at what you believe and then also combine it with the idea of what you want to achieve for yourself. And when you are able to balance those three off, firstly, you need to unlearn the old thing of you thinking that you're not good enough. And then relearn and teach yourself the belief system of saying, I am excellent now. Then when it goes from there, then it goes to the execution element of it. Because you can't, as you say rightfully, you can't go around saying you're excellent, but your behavior and the results are showing something else.
Yeah, the two do need to link up. But you so beautifully said that it starts. It starts with you saying it. And sometimes before you even believe it, it's the articulation of it. And I'm sure you're going to share a few strategies with us. It's the putting the sticky notes on the mirror so I can see it every day. It's the affirmations. It's whatever it is in your environment that supports that. And then you gravitate towards it through that entire process. So here's where I want to go next. I want to get a little bit practical now, so that those of us who are thinking, I want to embody a culture of excellence, but there are still maybe one or two things that I'm working through. Maybe let me just put it on the shelf and then I'll come back to it. Maybe right now the priority is just paying my bills. Excellence is not a priority. Basically, that's where I'm going, is how do we start to recognize that a culture of excellence is the foundation, a personal culture of excellence, or even an organizational one, is the foundation of the results that we seek, rather than the other way around. To say, no, right now, let me just pay my rent.
I'll get to it later.
Don't worry, it's coming. Yeah.
So I've got this, how do I put it? I've got this 3-process approach that I always share with different audiences and different people. And to the unlearners family, this is something that's going to probably transform your life, whichever stage you are in life. I call it the 3-stage process to achieving excellence. So the first step is to think. Just think. The same way you are thinking about the rent that you need to pay.
Yeah.
You need to start thinking about, okay, so beyond the rent, what do I want out of life? Like, I get it that right now I need the rent. So what do you want? Obviously, you want to one day own this apartment that I stay in, on this flat that I stay in. So in worrying about the rent, but your thinking should not only be on the rent. So think. So we need to transform the way we think. That's the first part of it. I made an example with my grandmother. She didn't look at the problem that she's in a rural area. She couldn't do anything. She can't send her kids to school. But she thought of, you know what? I can do something about it. So the same way, unlearners, you need to start thinking about, how can I do something about my situation? Yes, you want to pay the rent, but in paying the rent, think about the ideas of what you want. And in most cases, people only stop at thinking, which makes me go to the second part of this, which is then to execute. Because a lot of people, they think, they put the sticky notes, they put the idea, they write on the journal, they do all of those nice things, but then they take the journal and they put it away. And what I'm saying to you unlearners today is, when you've thought about it, you've put the sticky note on the fridge, you've loaded on a journal, ask yourself the question of, what is the smallest step I can take every day towards achieving that? Even if it means calling an agent to say, how much is it exactly to buy this apartment?
Yeah.
That single thing will trigger a thing in your system that will make you want it more. And then the next step would be, while you are executing, actually when they are showing the apartments, include yourself in the list of the people that want to go and see it. If you want it. So you are there now. What happens is, while you are executing, you move from the thinking of the idea of what I want. Now you are executing it. The more you get closer, the more hunger gets developed within you. And the more you develop the hunger from within, it kicks in a spirit of changing your way of thinking, of which we started. Then you begin to think as someone who's saying, you know what? I'm no more just thinking about the rent. I think now I need to figure out, how can I pay for that bond? How can I try and go to the bank and make myself, part of the people who are going to get the bond? And what happens is, when you execute, it forces you to change even your behavior. I've seen people who earn the minimal amount of, wages,
Yeah.
able to do things that you never thought because they've included the stuff in the execution process. So to you, unlearner, I know you've had the idea, I know you had the dream, but I'm challenging you today, execute it now. You don't have to go all in. Just that one step, as I'm saying to you, call that agent, call that bank, ask about it. Even if they say no, what's the worst that can happen? You already know, man, you're only trying to find your rent.
Yeah.
So you only try. And then the last part of it is you need them to, as a person, want the bigger things in life, which is I always say you need to dominate in whatever space you're in. So you think, you execute, and then you dominate.
Okay.
So in dominating, it involves a lot of character building from within yourself. You then need to start every day in the morning telling yourself that I'm the best, telling yourself that I'm excellent, telling yourself, and create that belief system within. You don't necessarily have to go out tell people. And then what you do while you're executing, whenever you show up to that meeting like somebody that knows their story. Do the research, do the work, dominate in every space. At the workplace, be the best at the workplace. Try by all means. Whenever they compliment someone, your name must be there. Now, this includes you working hard, putting in the extra time. Because, excellence can never be achieved if you are not willing to put in the work. So the dominating part, it speaks to even the high flyers. I'll make an example about Elon Musk. Dominating your space means you're not willing to take the no. You're not willing to give up. You're not willing to let go, even when they try to say give up. I make an example with Elon Musk. One of the first men to make it to the moon, Neil Armstrong, told Elon Musk that his rockets were never going to be successful in landing once they'd been shot up. But he did not believe that. So dominating means you have a spirit of dominating that you will keep going even when the people you look up to say you're not good enough or they don't believe in you. So that's the third element. So you need to think, you need to execute, and you need to dominate. If you do those things, I promise you, it begins to grow from within. And before you know it, you'll see yourself as someone who lives their life with excellence.
Have you ever been to one of those retreats that when you come back, you feel like, oh my goodness, I'm a different person? Well, the unlearning experience is exactly one of those. Because if you go to the unlearning experience, you're not just experiencing a transformation retreat. You are literally taking 3 beautiful days, gifting them to yourself all the way from Friday until Sunday, experiencing master classes that are powerful, workshops that will engage you. You are creating your journey and purpose for the coming year, taking stock of the year you are closing off. If you're someone who's transforming, the unlearning experience is for you. It's one of those retreats, and I'm not just saying this. This is the feedback we've received from previous retreat attendees, that the unlearning experience is life-changing. And so if you're ready for life-changing kinds of results, you're going to make sure you've got your ticket to the unlearning experience. I'm glad you expanded on the dominance part, because I was about to ask, the dominance, is it you coming in and just thrashing everyone at the office? Like now you're sitting every night looking at everyone else's numbers and you're like, I'm going to dominate them. So I'm glad that you clarified and what you mean by that dominance, because I think it can
It's very tricky. Yes, it's true. Yeah. That's why I'm saying that the dominating has to start from within. You need to dominate yourself from the bad habits, firstly, before you go and dominate other people. You know yourself, you like going out late in the evening. Dominate that spirit already. Say, okay, I'm more dominant than this. I'm going to try and, do better because I want to achieve certain things. So that dominating starts from within. Before you go out there, even in the workplace, you're not dominating other people. You're dominating your work.
Oh,
be so good at that work. In other words, in a Sizulu, that was funny. Don't ever allow anything to make you believe that you can never be able to do it. You can do it if you put your mind, your heart, and energy to it. I believe you can achieve it.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense now. I'm glad you expanded on that. And the thing that you were sharing really made me think that where you were going with it, and this is what I got from it, let me know if I'm on the right track here. It's this idea of building the awareness around doing what you can with where you are, and what you have in the moment, and really being able to take stock of your resources, being able to take stock of your environment, your circumstances, your situation, and then going with what I have. Especially, it's the story of your grandmother that really brought that home for me, to say, what is it right here, right now? Because often with excellence, it's so easy to look outside of ourselves and go, okay, what's a career out there? What's a skill out there that I need to build? Let me see. Instead of going, what skills do I have that I can allow my excellence to then shine through? Does that sort of...
Yes, indeed. You got it to on point. And more than anything, to even bring it more home, it's trying by all means to excel in the small wins. You know, your small wins, the small steps.
Yeah.
Try excelling in them, using what you have to get what you don't have. And when you do have that, you excel from there. It's just one step after the other, one step after the other. And don't think of it as this global big thing that, you know, one day I'll achieve it. No, you can actually achieve it in small answers every day, where you're saying, okay, how do I better myself today than yesterday?
Yeah.
So that's it in a holistic approach, as I'm saying, that where you are, what you're doing, what you have, look at yourself and how to do it. I mean, I made an example this one time about a taxi driver.
Yeah.
You know, we always laugh at taxi drivers. We may not understand sometimes the way they drive on the road, especially in South Africa. And you ask yourself, why do these guys do what they do? And some of them, I asked one of them and said, what? He said to me, because I want to make more money than I made yesterday.
Yeah.
I said, what? And I said, that's excellence right there. But obviously they do it in a different way. Yeah. But that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's a constant challenge of yourself and saying, look, man, this month I made 5,000. Next month I want to push myself to make 7,000.
Yeah.
You know, I want to try do it. Instead of saying I want to be making 50,000 overnight. Sure. Gradually grow. And the more you gradually grow, the more you master the process of how to get to the excellence of which is to be taught by society.
Great. And I'm getting from what you're saying that it's the constant unleashing and tapping into potential that's there.
Yes.
Because unless you are asking the question, very much like a taxi driver, how do I become better? Or how do I transform in such a way that I am improved? I am an innovative version of myself compared to where I was yesterday. And what I really love about your approach, Fortune, is this. The way you define excellence is not pigeonholed in terms of you're better than that other person, or you're in the sporting arena, or you're here, or you're in the corporate space. It's wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you are on a journey of learning, changing, growing, you are being excellent, or you are executing excellence.
In the words of the family, it's the constant of unlearning and relearning. The more you unlearn the old, the more you relearn the new. The more you learn the new, the more excellent you become. So, I mean, you just mentioned the arena of sport. I got goosebumps. I mean, I listened to the story of Usain Bolt. I mean, he still holds the record right now. He was asked, how did he come back? Because the previous year he was beaten. So he says, you know, in the interview, he says, you know what I asked myself? I said, how do I beat my time? I didn't say, how do I beat my core handers? He said, how do I beat my time? And his mission was always to get under that 10 second mark. And he literally wanted to do that. And I think for all of us, if we can aim for something and make it about you and never about the other person. I mean, I make an example. We run in the same circles in the public speaking business, but the amount of people you change and touch their lives, I should never try to compete with that, because I'm changing other people's lives in my corner. So the most important thing there is, as a person, ask yourself, what do you want out of your life? And you are literally the only competition that you have.
Beautiful. I like that. We're about to close off. We're running out of time, but I want to just make sure we're leaving the unlearners that are listening and watching this something practical, and maybe we can go back to your beautiful framework that you shared with us for that as well. I want to just come here.
Yeah.
What I'm noticing is really important with achieving excellence and the journey around it is that self-awareness, because when you have a beautiful idea around where you are, what your zone of excellence is, then you have a better chance of then building on it and enhancing that elevating from that level, because as Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better.
True.
And you can only act from where you are. This is one of the reasons why it becomes a little bit easier, and I'm not saying it's easier at all. It becomes a little bit simpler to forgive parents, to forgive people who hurt us, to forgive trauma and things that happen, because you understand that a person only acted from where they were.
Yep.
And sometimes we point fingers at parents and we go, oh, Ma could have been more excellent when she was raising me.
She could have done better.
Come on now. I mean, I could, and we say all sorts of things like I'm sure I could have parented better than that. But the truth
Until you
is,
face it yourself.
and then you go, no, actually the stuff is on. And you can only ever act out of what you know.
Correct.
And what you have access to. So if mom knew that a child needed to be raised like this and beaten 3 times a day and this, that's what she's going to do. She's never had anything other than that. But now with what you're saying, and what I love about this conversation is you're saying, wherever it is that you are, take stock of that and then build onto it, because already you are excellent. But building a culture of excellence is about consistently climbing that ladder wherever you are and with what you have.
It's the small steps that matter the most. I think I always reminisce about the story of my grandmother, because, I mean, even when you think about it, it doesn't make sense for a woman of, previous disadvantage in South Africa who comes up just selling fruits and vegetables, whether at the market or at the farm. When you think about it now, when you think about it, like there's this woman at the market, she's selling fruits and vegetables, and she is responsible for a family and also taking the kids to school.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense economically if you try to look at it that way. But once the mindset is there, you need to start saying to yourself, okay, I know I cannot afford this. I know I cannot do this. But you don't end in the knowing what you know. Mm-hmm. Now, what you then need to do is unlearn what you know. Yeah. Then you unlearn what you know. Then you go to researching about what you want to achieve. Mm-hmm. So I use the story of my grandmother again. She then took the step of saying, okay, how much is it going to cost me to send these kids to school? Yeah. And she then had that information. With having that information, for every apple she sold, she took a decision to say, you know what? If this apple was 50 cents or was 1 rand, I'm going to save at least 20 cents from it to save it for my kids. Now it's becoming very much practical. I mean, I think even you as a person, the unlearner sitting at home, look at yourself, ask yourself in the mirror, what is it that I want? Break it down to smaller steps. The smaller it is, the easier to achieve it becomes. And then you just keep consistently doing that.
Correct. Yeah. Small steps do create that beautiful momentum that allows us to build habits. It's definitely one of the things that we teach at the Unlearners as part of changing habits, building new behaviors, creating behavior change. Yep. So this is why, from devil's advocates all the way to, okay. He's all right. Thank you so much for your time. This was so good. It went by so quickly because I think we just sort of gelled. Thank you so much for your time.
Beautiful. Thank you to the Unlearners family.
Thank you very much. Unlearners, thank you so much for taking the time and a slice out of your day to listen or watch this episode of the Unlearners podcast. So make sure that if you are the type of person who does like to build a personal culture of excellence, head over to our website and click on the banner that says sign up for the retreat, because every single year we host an unlearning experience retreat that is designed for individuals who like to create cultures of excellence and want to transform. So do join us there by going over to theunlearners.com/retreat. All right, that's it for today's episode. It's been myself, Zanele Njapa, the Unlearning Lady. Say bye for now.
The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow.